Well, happy Friday, free people of the Rocky Mountain region. This is Brandon from freestatecolorado.com. Got a fresh cup of coffee and I'm ready to go over some of this week's news stories. Hope you had a great week. It's starting to feel like summer out there. Absolutely gorgeous days ahead of us. But let's take a look at the week behind us and see what's been going on in our state. We got some good, we got some bad, and we got some really ugly news stories. So let's check them out. We got westward.com, first story I'd like to cover this week from April 7th, 2023. Fentanyl use prompts downtown Target to lock up aluminum foil. Yikes. A security guard was making his rounds at the Target on the 16th Street Mall when, out of the blue, a cloud of smoke took him out of commission for the rest of his shift. I had to go home because I just got too high, he says. Wow. Blues, as drug experts call them, have led to a new shoplifting phenomenon at the downtown Target, where fentanyl users will swipe aluminum foil straight from the shelves and freebase the illegal blue pills right there in the middle of the store, according to security guards. The guard, who agreed to share only his first name, Donovan, says the problem has gotten so bad the store management decided to lock up its store supply of Reynolds Wrap and will continue doing so for the foreseeable future. Absolutely crazy, so sad. I mean, come on, look what's going on in Denver. It's becoming one of these meccas of crime, really unsafe place to take your family. Other stores on the 16th Street Mall have put theirs under protective order too. The CVS at the corner of Stout and 16th keeps its foil behind the checkout counter, according to one worker there. It's because people kept coming in and swiping pieces of it. Donovan describes a whole process with people coming into Target to steal just a little bit of foil, then using a lighter to heat the blue pills in the foil before smoking the fentanyl. That's absolutely crazy. I mean, it's so sad, right? I mean, so sad you can't even go to Target, you can't even take your family to a store in downtown Denver anymore for fear that they're getting exposed to fentanyl smoke. So while Target is focused on aluminum foil, the CVS on the 16th Street Mall recently took to locking up its soda and cold food coolers too. The extra security measures were made public in an April 4th Reddit post, with commenters pointing out that they now need to wait for workers or the manager to get something as simple as a Coke. So they're stealing up groceries, they're stealing Pepsi, they're stealing your White Castle burgers, as you can see in the photo here. I mean, it's pretty sad, right? This used to be a tourist attraction on 16th Street Mall. Now there's so much drug use, so much homelessness, so much crime that it's not even a safe place to be. Just another example of why people need to get out of Denver and realize the failed policies of the politicians there are really destroying the capital city of our great state. Very sad story. But let's move on, see what else is going on in Denver. This editorial from the denvergazette.com, the Gazette editorial board, April 10th, 2023. Denver School Board shuts us out. So, as you know, Denver schools have been facing a lot of controversy, not just in recent weeks, but in recent years over their very strange behavior of some of their school board members. And of course, the very tragic and sad safety issues that the school's experiencing, in particular Denver East High School, of course. Let's take a look at what the Gazette has to say about this. Just when you thought Denver's hapless, rudderless, and feckless school board had run out of ways to display its ineptitude, it found another. It broke the law. Wow, Denver Gazette is not holding anything back here. Tell us how you really feel. As reported by the Gazette last week, the Denver Public Schools Board made a key policy decision to return police to Denver schools during a closed-door session that shut out the press and public. The 5-hour-long marathon meeting was held a day after the March 22nd shooting at Denver's East High School had seriously wounded 2 school administrators. It's a clear-cut violation of the Open Meetings Law. Steve Zansberg, First Amendment attorney in Denver and president of Colorado Freedom of Information Coalition, told the Gazette's news team. Of course, it was the board's own reckless policies kicking cops off school campuses while keeping high-risk kids in class that had done so much to undermine school security in the first place. It's a safe bet. Board members kept their March 23rd attempt at crisis management a members-only affair so the public couldn't watch them backtrack and eat crow. So very sad. Unfortunately, Denver Public Schools doesn't seem to have the best interest of their students at hand. And, there's really little reason why parents and students should trust the school board at this point. If at all possible, get your children out of government schools, get them into a private school or homeschool if at all possible. These government schools are absolute failures. Well, let's move on to the next story here. Speaking of government schools, got another one here. You may have seen this. shocking, surprising, kind of a tragic case here, as you can imagine. We got a third teacher from Colorado School District dies after suspected meningitis case. This is from Fox News, reposted on New York Post from April 14th, 2023, so just earlier today. A third Colorado teacher from Cherry Creek School District died over the past weekend as the coroner's office investigates whether the other two had bacterial meningitis. Willow Creek Elementary School physical education teacher Scott Nash died from unknown causes. Nash also taught freshman baseball at Cherry Creek High School in Greenwood Village. Absolutely tragic, absolutely sad. The fact that there's three teachers now who have passed away, and it could possibly be bacterial meningitis, it could be a lot of things, but very sad. I mean, how dangerous are these public schools where, they're not necessarily clean? So, something to keep an eye on. Meningitis occurs when the brain and spinal cord's protective membranes are infected. A stiff neck, disorientation, high fever, and severe headaches are all symptoms. So, pretty sad stuff. I wanted to point that out because, another example of why public schools are not necessarily the best place for your children. Let's move on to another story here. We'll get on to some of the housing bills that have been going through the state legislature. Housing is one of the top issues in Colorado, of course. It's very difficult to find affordable housing for many people, many working class people, especially here in our state. But the government solutions are only making things worse, as you can expect. At par for the course, the politicians do not really have good solutions for the issues at hand. This is an article from the great Natalie Menton from April 10th, 2023, on page2.completecolorado.com. CompleteColorado.com is a website you should be checking every day. Awesome news aggregator that really tells you what you need to know and what the corporate media doesn't always necessarily want you to know. So check this one out. Housing mandates trade living choices for subsidized density. When discussing housing, it's important to not lose sight of the effects of Proposition 123. Proposition 123 passed last year, as you know, to create more affordable housing by stealing our taxpayer refund. So the recently passed law directs hundreds of millions of dollars that would otherwise be refunded under the Taxpayers' Bill of Rights, TABOR, towards high-density, subsidized housing starting now and moving forward. Local governments, including municipalities, towns, and counties, are just starting to discuss Proposition 123 implementation, which will affect the growth and population of each jurisdiction. The Department of Local Affairs, DOLA, and the Office of Economic Development, with the guidance of the measure's proponents, are leading the instructional workshops on how to set a baseline in local governments in Colorado. After the local government's baseline is set, the political jurisdiction must increase subsidized and preferred high-density housing by 3% per year each year to satisfy the requirements of the new mandate to get what would normally be refunded to taxpayers under TABOR. Here's the possible options for landlocked governments, especially Denver Metro, to achieve this 3% dense subsidized growth per year. 1. Replace existing market-based housing with subsidized housing. 2. Build higher. 3. Increase allowable housing density. And 4. Any combination of the above. So as we can see, this is exactly what is happening in our state government this year. Proposition 123, as Natalie points out, kind of laid the framework for this increased subsidized high density housing that no Colorado voter actually really wants. And now the state government is figuring out ways to force local municipalities, local governments to bring in more and more people, more traffic, more crime, more congestion than the communities actually want. So check out that article from the great Natalie Menton. Let's move on. Continuing on with the housing bills going through the state legislature. This is from coloradopolitics.com, April 11th, 2023. Lawmakers advance caps on rental income requirements, security deposits in Colorado. Under the proposal, landlords could only require tenants to earn 2 times the cost of rent. So here we go, seeing these politicians come in, these socialist politicians in the Denver Democratic Socialists of America, pushing these bills to make it harder to be a landlord, making it more difficult for individual property owners to rent their property out. Well, guess what that's going to do to the market, right? You make it harder to do something, you're going to see less of it. Coloradans with low incomes could qualify for much more rental housing under a new bill making its way through the state legislature. Most landlords require tenants to earn at least 3 times the amount they charge for rent. In 2022, the average monthly cost of a one-bedroom apartment in Colorado was $1,364. That means tenants must make at least $49,104 to qualify. The individual median income for Coloradans is just under $37,000, according to the most recent census data from 2020. If passed, Senate Bill 184 would cap minimum income requirements for tenants to twice the cost of rent. It would also cap security deposits to the cost of 2 months' rent, among other changes. I mean, absolutely ridiculous to say that these politicians know better than landlords, than property owners as to what the property should cost to rent. I mean, these people got to mitigate risk, right? You're renting your property out to somebody coming down the street. You want to make sure they can pay their bills, right? It's not that's surprising that you want to make sure that they're not going to skip out on paying your rent. Of course, when you combine this with bills that are making it harder to evict people and other requirements, I mean, you can see this is a disaster being set up for renters, for landlords, for people who want to earn some extra income and bring in money to their household by renting out maybe a spare bedroom or a AUD or whatever, accessory dwelling unit, ADU, out in their backyard. So pretty sad to see the state legislator get so off the rails in terms of housing and a lack of understanding of economics. What this will actually do is not allow Coloradans to qualify for much more rental housing like this first sentence says. It'll make rental housing much less available to people, especially with low incomes in Colorado. I mean, supply and demand, people. It's government interfering in the market, creating a shortage of supply while demand keeps going high. Of course, what are you going to do? Have higher costs at that point, higher prices, but the state's not going to allow that. So here we go. Leads to shortages. So check out that article if you're interested. Just another example of the ineptitude of our state government. Another editorial from the Gazette editorial board from April 13th, 2023, yesterday. I want to put this one in here because it goes along with the housing situation that we're seeing at the state legislature. Polis's power grab hits a wall. Now, it really is exciting to see so much resistance coming out against Polis's plan to force high density housing on these local residential rural communities, turning suburban into high density housing. People don't want that. People don't want to live in those communities, but Jared Polis doesn't care. To the editorial. So, Colorado Governor Jared Polis wants to steamroll local zoning and land use rules in favor of his own vision for planning and development across the entire state. Not so fast, say Colorado cities. Their opposition first popped up when their chief lobbyist at the Capitol, Kevin Bommer of the Colorado Municipal League, labeled Polis's plan a breathtaking power grab that was upon its unveiling a few weeks ago as Senate Bill 23-213. It was just the start of the pushback. As reported by Colorado Politics, the CEO of Colorado's number 2 city, Colorado Springs Mayor John Suthers, turned up at the bill's debut in the Senate committee last week and poured cold water on it. Suthers, a former district attorney, Colorado Attorney General, and U.S. Attorney, stared down lawmakers and warned them that if they passed the measure in its current form, Colorado Springs and other cities would tie it up in years of contentious litigation. Wow. Then, as Colorado Politics reported this week, mayors in 39 cities and towns in the Denver metro area signed onto a letter in opposition. The missive from the Metro Mayor's Caucus expressed skepticism the Polis plan would achieve its avowed goal, creating more affordable housing, and cited serious concerns about the top-down process of its implementation. That put the mayors officially in alignment with Bommer's Colorado Municipal League, which represents 270 cities and towns in Colorado, as well with the influential lobby Colorado Counties Incorporated, which represents almost all of the state's 64 counties. The coup de grace came Thursday. The 3-term mayor of Colorado's largest city, Denver's Michael Hancock, along with Denver City Council President Jamie Torres, weighed in against the plan. So nobody wants this plan. The communities do not want it. However, Polis and his little legislative lackeys are trying to force local communities to accept high density housing that the communities do not want. Definitely lowering the standard of living for all Coloradans. That will be Jared Polis's legacy, is lowering the living standard for Colorado's working class, Colorado's communities across the state. So great to see the opposition. Senate Bill 213 is a bill that needs to end, to die in the state legislature, and let's hope that happens. All right, let's move on here. CPR.org. Some state-funded media right here for you. April 11th, 2023, Democrats make last-minute changes to a bill that makes it easier to sue firearms manufacturers at Polis's request. So this is the first in a couple of news articles I want to talk about these horrific gun bills, these absolutely outrageous attempts to restrict our ability to defend ourselves that the government is pushing. Well, I should say some of the state legislators in our capital are pushing. A picture of the state Senate chamber. The bill that would make it easier to sue the firearms industry is close to crossing the finish line, but it will get there with some potentially significant last-minute changes. The bill, Senate Bill 23-168, had passed both chambers of the legislature with relatively few changes. But then, late last week, a bipartisan committee of lawmakers agreed to delete several passages, partially at the request of Governor Jared Polis. The bill overall is meant to make it easier for people to sue firearm manufacturers who are currently shielded from civil liability in a way that most industries are not. The amendment narrows that change, reducing and simplifying the list of reasons that people can sue a gun company. The bill's sponsors, all Democrats, unanimously agreed to the revisions. What actually changed? The original bill created a new code of conduct for firearms makers and sellers and allowed people to sue when the industry violates that code. The amendment eliminates the code of conduct and instead holds the industry responsible only for upholding existing laws. For example, the original version of the bill declares that firearm industry members have a lawful duty and responsibility to take reasonable precautions to prevent foreseeable risks to life, health, safety, and well-being of the citizens of Colorado. The original bill also outlined a list of specific responsibilities for the industry, such as thwarting straw purchases and preventing sales to people at substantial risk of hurting themselves or illegally hurting others. It also said that guns can't be marketed or sold in a way that targets minors or promotes the use of illegal aftermarket modifications. Those responsibilities are all struck from the amended bill. Instead, it now says that companies can be sued if they fail to follow Colorado law. It specifically refers to the Colorado Consumer Protection Act, which prohibits deceptive and unfair trade practices, as well as the state's laws on firearm sales. The amended bill also now says that the industry is only liable for knowing violation of the laws, which mirrors federal law. Wow. So still a horrific bill. Senate Bill 23-168 is an egregious attempt to put firearms manufacturers and gun stores out of business because they want to shift the culture. These anti-gun Democrats and authoritarian politicians across the country want to shut down firearm manufacturing because they think that will make it easier for them to prevent individual gun owners from being able to enjoy their Second Amendment rights. So good to see, I suppose, that this bill made a change. Unfortunately, it's still a bad bill. Polis is not off the hook for this one, neither is the state legislature. But pretty interesting to see those changes. Continuing with the gun bills, yesterday just recorded a very short, about a 6-minute long interview with Taylor Rhodes, the executive director of Rocky Mountain Gun Owners, detailing the latest update on this assault weapons ban of 2023. I should say assault weapons ban in quotes because what they define as assault weapons are nearly 60-70% of the guns on the market. So checking out this House Bill 23-1230, sponsored by Democratic Socialists of America member Elizabeth Epps and Rhonda Fields, who unfortunately is tarnishing her legacy. You know, this lady has a pretty strong legacy in the state legislature, but Rhonda Fields is erasing her legacy and really leaving a bad taste in the mouths of most Coloradans for pushing this type of ban on the most commonly owned firearms in Colorado. So check out this video, really short, with Taylor Rhodes, just talking about what's going on at the state legislature and how to fight back. The most important thing is for individuals to show up and testify. So Wednesday, April 19th, 2023, 1:30 in the House Judiciary Committee. The link is here for you to sign up. Show up in person if at all possible. As Taylor says in the video, if we can flood the state capitol with lots of pro-gun people, gun owners from across the state, and really show up in force to show these people that we're not going to take their attempts to restrict our rights laying down. So check that out at freestatecolorado.com/RMGO-1230. Checking out another one about guns, and of course, one of the reasons why we have guns in our society, or one of the most important reasons to have them, of course, is this ability to defend ourselves, our families, and the people around us. So this is from CBSNews.com, CBS Colorado. Alleged robber shot to death during pawn shop holdup. Now, of course, any loss of life is a tragedy. However, when you read this article, the guy probably deserved it. April 7th, 2023. A 31-year-old man was fatally shot Thursday by a Glendale pawn shop employee during an apparent robbery attempt. The alleged robber was on parole. A caller from the pawn shop called 911 late Thursday morning to report the incident. Deputies from the Arapahoe County Sheriff's Office found a man dead inside the Top Colorado pawn shop at 8030 East Mississippi Avenue. Based on preliminary evidence, the man who died was trying to rob the store. He just went straight to the salespeople, pointed the gun, said, "Open the jewelry case." They just opened the store 6 minutes earlier. He came in with a gun already, 3 seconds, and he had it, pointed it at one of the salesperson, then pointed at another salesperson. The scary part is he had no mask. Who knows? He might want to kill everybody. The pawn shop's jeweler, a 45-year-old man, was on the other end of the store when the robbery began. He approached the robber from behind and shot him. Wow. I mean, absolutely sad, really tragic situation, but thankfully this employee at the pawn shop had a firearm, was able to protect the people there, was able to stop this violent criminal from, potentially shooting and killing people in the business. All the businesses need to be careful now. Somebody tried to rob us 2 weeks ago. They tried to break the door at 2 a.m. Wow. The inventory in the shop isn't his concern. It's insured. It's his customer's employee and himself that he worries about. We just hope everybody can stay safe. So with record crime, violent criminals led on the streets by the state government, let city governments allowing these criminals to continue their crime sprees. And of course, this fracturing of society we've experienced since the COVID lockdowns of 2020. Unfortunately, things don't seem to be getting better on the crime side of things. So having armed good guys, armed citizens being able to defend their businesses, defend their families, defend the people around them is really the best path forward to stop these violent criminals from continuing to terrorize our communities. Moving on, last gun rights article here of the week from John Caldera at Complete Colorado, page 2. April 12th, 2023. Gun grabbers disempower citizens, keep racist cops well armed. When the Denver Public School Board voted to remove police from their campuses, many in the Black Lives Matter movement applauded, saying it would help end the school-to-prison pipeline for young black men. The argument being that cops unfairly arrest black students. To fight the racial abuse in the justice system, the Colorado legislature went on a sentencing reform screed. Steal a car? Don't go to jail. Get a ticket? Fentanyl was nearly decriminalized. After the high-profile police shootings of African Americans and the death of George Floyd, the Black Lives Matter crusade engulfed the nation. The message was very clear. The police treat minorities very differently than whites, particularly black men. The police are so systematically racist that they've been basically free to hunt the black man with impunity. The Black Lives Matter and Defund the Police movement goals were clear: to get cops to stop discriminating, intimidating, and killing black citizens. I would think the last thing people who support Black Lives Matter would do is to make it easier for police to shoot more black men, at the same time disempowering black men. Yet we are witnessing just that at the state capitol and cities all across Colorado. Lawmakers are allowing racist police, former retired and off-duty cops to have military-grade weapons of war and high-capacity magazines, all while disarming black citizens. It's worth remembering America's first ever gun control laws were passed in the post-Civil War South to disarm newly freed black citizens. Many didn't like the idea of black men protecting themselves from the Klan, which included more than a few lawmen. Wow. So, I mean, a great point that John Caldera makes, these same politicians, these same legislators who decry the racism of the cops are instituting laws with their anti-gun policies to make it easier for these law enforcement officers to terrorize communities of color, to kill and jail black and brown people, and to create a situation in which it's a much less safe situation for having these well-armed cops in a disarmed society. So John Caldera not pulling any punches on that article there. Let's move on. This is from Krista Kafer from Think Different, her Substack. KristaKafer.substack.com. 3 Colorado abortion pills will deny your right to choose the healthcare you need. They are unconstitutional. April 13th, 2023. So, of course, the abortion debate continues to be huge. The Democrats in our Colorado legislature are patting themselves on the back by passing these bills to apparently make Colorado more of an abortion haven, I guess, from people from other states. And let's take a look at what these bills are really doing. So our right to make our own healthcare choices will be seriously compromised if Senate Bills 188, 189, and 190 are signed into law. While all three bills will eventually be struck down as unconstitutional under the Colorado and U.S. constitutions, they will, in the meanwhile, deny our right to choose. Senate Bill 189 will force employers to purchase health insurance policies that cover abortion up to birth without copays in violation of the Colorado Constitution, which states no public funds may be used directly or indirectly for abortion unless to save the life of the mother, with every reasonable effort made to preserve her life and the life of her child. Under SB 189, public funds will be used directly to enforce the abortion mandate and indirectly to force taxpayers to subsidize abortion through their insurance premiums. The bill does not protect employees who consider themselves pro choice but do not want to pay for abortion, or employees who are pro life. The bill has a narrow exception for employers with sincerely held religious beliefs opposed to abortion, but leave these employers open to lawsuits if they do not provide abortion coverage. Wow. Absolutely crazy. Let's move on to the next one here. Senate Bill 188 would force medical institutions and insurers to contract with medical personnel who perform abortions. Because the provision contains only a narrow conscience clause for religious organization, it likely violates federal health care funding laws and First Amendment protections. Because Colorado receives federal funds, it cannot discriminate against institutions that object to abortion. Lastly, Senate Bill 190 violates a woman's right to choose the care they want during their pregnancy. It targets pregnancy resource centers that provide pregnancy tests, ultrasounds, information about fetal development, referrals, and material support such as diapers, baby clothes, and other needs. The legislation asserts that such centers engage in deceptive advertising practices, but does not provide a precise definition of such practices. Since the bill denigrates centers for suggesting that adoption or parenting is a better option than abortion, a belief held by many people I know who consider themselves pro choice, it is likely that the sponsors consider even this value statement deceptive. Any such statement would be fair game under the law. Similar laws have been struck down by the Supreme Court and lower courts on First Amendment grounds. Wow. So check out this article. Of course, these legislators in the state government are so radical that they're not willing to conceive that anybody could agree with, with wanting to save the life of an unborn child. So check that out. Last article of the week from ColoradoPeakPolitics.com, April 11th, 2023. Property taxes will skyrocket 40 to 50% with Governor Polis MIA from promised action. The reason I say this one from the last is because we could see all the priorities of our state legislature this year. Whether it was the abortion debate, guns, housing, these other issues that, aren't necessarily affecting the majority of people in our state. What the state legislature is failing to do is to protect homeowners, to keep costs low from these skyrocketing property taxes we're about to see. With less than a month left in the legislative session, Governor Polis has yet to put forth any plan to prevent a looming bloodbath and cap residential property tax increases as he promised when voters repealed the Gallagher Amendment. Republicans put forth their own plan to cap expected spikes of 40 to 50%, which is 5 or 10% over the next several years. But Democrats were ordered to kill those efforts and await the arrival of their hero governor, who would surely swoop in and save the day just in time for his planned 2024 presidential run. Yet the clock is running out as we hold tightly to our wallets. Here's a tweet from Michael Fields. Dougco property taxes are about to go up by 40 to 50%. Similar numbers across the state. Unsurprisingly, Governor of Colorado and Colorado legislature have done nothing about it. So very true, right? While Polis and the Democrat-controlled legislature are focused on virtue signaling bills to appease the progressive base, Douglas County is looking to pass a temporary mill levy credit for residents there to survive the coming property tax hike. Unless Polis can pivot quickly from his next target takeover of local government zoning laws to force an explosion of dense housing overdevelopment, Colorado homeowners will soon be paying more money on tax bills than the actual mortgage. Wow. So here we go. It's going to become even less affordable for people in Colorado, become much more difficult for homeowners to be able to afford to live here. And of course, the state government is failing to help the people out. Well, that's what I have this week, folks. Thank you very much for joining me. Thanks for joining on this weekly roundup, helping round up these news stories. Hope you have a great weekend. We'll see you next week. If you have any other news stories or you see anything, send me an email or leave a comment below. Thank you very much, and take care.